uh, MLW 352 is Toney Johnson from Cincinnati, the transfer, going to be the starting slot receiver. Pete, I don't know. I'll ask your thoughts here in a second. My view is I think he'll start off as a starting slot, but he's going to have a hard time and he's going to be the glue guy. He led Cincinnati in touchdowns last year. That was a Power 4 school. Former walk-on, academic guy, very smart, productive at FAU as well. So I think he's going to be a solid player, but I think Malachi Toney is going to be coming with some steam for that spot, and I think he will ultimately get it because of his talent and just he's really, really good mentally, which is the key for young guys playing.
Yeah, I think that if you look at who's going to be the first wide receiver to walk out there against Notre Dame at the slot position, then I would probably go with Johnson. But as the course of the game and the season, I agree 100%. But as the course of the game even goes on, I think, once Malachi gets his first few snaps in there and they see he's ready to go, he's a gamer, it'll be pretty tough to take him off the field.
And Ray Joseph, Ray Joseph's a part of this mix. He's been hosting all these receivers, so he's clearly front and center part of the team, and he looked really, really good in the spring, much improved. So I think Ray Joseph is also going to have a chance there if he continues his trajectory. But if I had to bet, I'm betting like if you're betting who's our starter.
I'm not counting him out, but you want our opinion. I think I think it'll be Malachi.
I think it'll be Malachi by week 6. If you just pick the middle of the season and say no injuries, I would say Malachi's a starter. Does he start off as the starter? I don't know. Sometimes those things can be weird. You're playing Notre Dame the first game of the season, so maybe you want someone with a little more experience. But just overall, if you're asking me who I think is going to emerge from the slot, I would say Malachi Toney, just because the way he played in spring, the rare instincts this guy has. This guy's been the best player since he was a kid. That's why I call him Baby Jesus. I didn't make the nickname up. I'm just passing it on. He played quarterback when Raja Bell's son, Dia Bell, went down, Texas commit, top 50 player in the country, and he was actually better than Dia Bell at quarterback. I'm not saying he's a better prospect than Dia Bell, but productivity-wise, he was better than Dia Bell when he took over at quarterback, and he was, quite frankly, better than Darion Coleman in the state championship game when they faced off American Heritage and Orlando Jones. I was there. So, this guy's a unique instincts player. And then off the field, does everything right, works hard, avoids the off-field distractions, all ball. So you can factor the off-field intangibles with the on-field instincts, and then he has the physical traits you want as a slot. Strong kid, he'll get stronger, but he's not like a super small slot. He's built more like a running back. He just needs to gain some weight, college stuff, but he's going to be a strong slot. Great hands, great body control, very good quickness. Not a 4.4 speed guy, probably like a really good 4.5 guy. Maybe gets in the 4.4s, but he has all the traits to be a stud. Here, bagging up, asking what are Toney's 2 greatest strengths as a wide receiver? I think I just said football instincts, and then off the field diligence, which to me is the most underrated trait in wide receivers. The guys that are great wide receivers work on their game all the time, because you can't work on your game all the time as a lineman, because you can't just be hitting people all the time. You can't work on your game all the time as a running back or a linebacker, but you can work on your game all the time as a receiver, because it is jugs machine, routes on air, things like that, studying off defenses. And I think the great receivers, even the ones that are kind of off the rocker, like Antonio Brown or Tyreek Hill, who works harder than those guys, Terrell Owens, and then, of course, DeAndre Johnsons, Larry Fitzgeralds, guys like that are just workers. I always use the examples here in Miami, KJ Osborne, recent years. Who's the last All-America we had a wide receiver? Xavier Estrepo. Halen Hearns was a really hard worker. Mike Harley, Braxton Berrios. I don't leave some people out, but Philip Dorsett, he was fast, but he was a really hard worker. The guys that are hard workers are the guys that get it done at receiver. So I think hard work off the field, the ability to see everything on the field as a former quarterback. And then in terms of physical traits, his best skill, probably just quickness and body control. So add that all up, I think he's got the package.
I feel like it's the most similar position to DB. There's a lot of aspects to it also, but it's like the basketball players you see take a huge jump in the offseason because they're in the gym, just shooting, working on their game, adding things to their bag. And I think wide receiver is the most similar thing to that.
That's a great comparison, Pete. Especially that we talk about like shooting and stuff, right? So I wasn't expecting to talk about this player here, but like a James Harden, right? James Harden, I'm pulling up his college stats at Arizona State.
He was a box a box score stuffer in college, but he wasn't a scorer like that. I remember watching him a lot. I mean, he was pretty well rounded across the board.
Yeah, so he played 2 seasons, and 1.7 threes made a game. 1.5 for his career at college. 1.5 threes made a game in college for James Harden, which, I mean,
yeah. But five and a half rebounds, 4 assists a game. So I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, he's
the efficiency was there.
It was, but I mean, if you look
he wasn't a scorer shooter like what he's become now.
If you look at Nigel Pack averaged 2.5 threes a game in his college career. James Harden was the ultimate 3-point shooter in pros as far as just chucking him up. I mean, I don't know what he averages, how many makes he averages for his career in the pros. I say that to say, people work on different things in basketball, to your point, which I think is a great one, and really become almost different players over the summer. And I think you see that at receiver. So James Harden career, 3 threes made a game in college, in pros. So basically doubling. So I think that's a good example. I think wide receiver, it also comes sometimes with the diva part of it too. And Malachi, I don't think has that, although he is very confident in a good way. But I mean, even the guys that you say in basketball or in football, like the Antonio Browns, TOs, that they have something kind of questionable character-wise, the work is not the questionable character part. The wide receivers that don't work don't do anything. They do not play. They do not advance. They do not play. And by the way, if you're a freak like an Andre Johnson or Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, you still work like a maniac. That's why those guys make it, and they're not some of these other freaks that just didn't advance. Andre Johnson, when he got to Miami, couldn't catch. He had very poor hands when he first got to Miami. Ended up being one of the leading receivers in the NFL over his tenure. So, and catching a lot of balls. So, yeah, working on your game as a receiver to me is paramount. IQ is paramount. There's no better example than the guy we just had in the All-America team, whose banner is going to be hanging in the IPF. So I think Malachi is mentally very similar to Restrepo, with the instincts, with the off field, with the hands and body control, but probably more quick and more speed, more of a 4.45, 4.5 speed as opposed to 4.8, and probably more quickness as well. Restrepo was quick, but he was more spatial awareness than like just juking guys out. Whereas Malachi, I think, has more quickness. So that's how I would break it down. Not as heavy as Restrepo. Restrepo was 200 plus, but kind of a thickly built kid. Not a skinny, not like a Travis Benjamin or Dorsett. This guy has so much more size to him.